Federico, thank you so much for being on This Week in Cosmos. I'm super pumped to talk about Evmos today, so welcome to the show.
Welcome. Thank you so much for the invite, and yeah, excited to talk about Evmos today.
Cool. Let's start this interview with an analogy that you made at Cosmoverse, which is that every chain in the Cosmos ecosystem is a virtual city, and the Cosmos Hub is basically the port city. Could you explain this analogy a little bit more and describe it to our listeners?
Yeah. So the main analogy here is that on Cosmos, each chain it's its own sovereign chain, in the sense that they have their own set of validators, they have their own governance that controls the entire community, that is controlled by the entire community. So they govern the entire chain and basically have to bootstrap their own security with the validators. And the Cosmos Hub is usually like the shelling point of the Cosmos ecosystem. Like Atom itself as a coin is like the go-to, and it's driving a lot of value right now because, well, it's where most of the airdrops are being allocated. Same with osmosis right now because it's the first DEX. But in general, like was Cosmos Hub the first one that gave the access to like applications to be connected via IBC. The main missing piece that we thought had to be built for this ecosystem was how do we build a tool, how do we build an application-specific blockchain that also allows all the mindset that comes directly from Ethereum to also enter this world of interconnected blockchains. And so we think Evmos is the perfect point of entry to the Cosmos ecosystem for all the Ethereum developers and Ethereum users, because they'll have the same user experience that they currently have on Ethereum and other EVM chains, and through different bridges. So like we're currently going to deploy Nomad and Connects, and other bridges as well will follow up. So through these bridges, users can directly transfer their EVM or ERC20 tokens to Evmos, and then with our new ERC20 module, they can convert those and transfer them to like osmosis and other chains in the ecosystem. So it's really going to be the point of entry of all these different applications from the EVM.
Yeah, that sounds very interesting, because at the end of the day, Evmos brings Ethereum to the Cosmos ecosystem in a very interesting way. So could we dive deeper here a little bit? So why is this so important, and how did this kick off?
Yeah, so Evmos itself, it was born as Ethermint. And for the ones that know about the Ethermint project, it was a project incubated early on at Tendermint, the company. So it started in October 2016, more like a research project. And the goal basically was, how do we run an EVM an Ethereum with fast finality and also running proof of stake? And the experiment was successful, but the main problem that we saw is that it was always like kind of like a research project. It was never pushed to production by any of the teams that were working on it. So the project itself was forwarded from hand to hand, like passed like a button, without any like continuity or any team like allocating resources to building different partnerships or allocating resources for business development and everything. So that's when we came in and took ownership of the project and continue building the initial Ethermint library. And then we rebranded the project. We kept Ethermint just as a library for other applications to use it and have an EVM compatible Cosmos chain, but the main application that we're building, the main chain that we're building is going to be called Evmos, which stands for EVM on Cosmos.
I'm super excited about Evmos in general because it basically brings the whole Ethereum ecosystem, which is still the biggest ecosystem in crypto, to the Cosmos ecosystem. So this is very cool, but this also sounds very, very challenging because it's a very large ecosystem. So could you talk a little bit about the challenges that you were facing or affected by, or some of the hurdles that we were affected by when it comes to bringing Ethereum basically to Cosmos?
Yeah, so there are multiple challenges. I would say the first challenge is the user experience for users. So in Cosmos, we already have our own set of tools like Kepler, different explorers that handle Cosmos transactions, etc. But if you go to Etherscan, you'll find a completely different format for blocks, completely different format for transactions, and you also have to add the functionality to the explorers to kind of like inspect the contracts and inspect each of the internal transactions that a contract makes. So it all comes to how do we create a rich user experience and developer user experience for everyone, so that we can combine these two ecosystems into a single nice user experience. So in a way that we are able to support both Ethereum transactions and Ethereum formatted types like transaction blocks, etc., and also be able to inspect the smart contracts, etc. So that has been like the main challenge, creating a nice user experience that combines Cosmos and Ethereum types. And then I guess the second major hurdle is to launch an EVM chain these days. It's not really like it's not as much as a technical engineering challenge, but also a lot of it comes into like the business development. So how do we make it so that developers and users want to use your EVM as opposed to other EVM chains? Or what's a unique value proposition that your EVM is bringing to the already existing variety of EVM-based chains? So those have been our main, I would say, challenges. And we want to incorporate them by adding Ethereum signing functionality to Kepler. So that's one big thing that we're going to announce soon, that we're preparing for mainnet. So you'll be able to use a Kepler more or less like a MetaMask wallet. And the other big thing is like we're also incorporating incentives natively into the tokenomics. So adding incentives to the platform directly to incentivize developers and users.
This sounds super interesting, especially the fact that you want to incentivize people via the tokenomics, and we will talk about the Rektdrop in a couple of minutes. And also very interesting what you said with your idea behind Kepler and MetaMask. I remember you also talked about it at Cosmoverse about this aspect. This was also very interesting as well. But I want to go a step back because we touched on the old history of Evmos and Ethermint. So basically, Evmos, if you want to say it like this, is a very, very old project. It's from the early days, but you rebranded in September. And what I want to ask you is, like, first of all, according to a blog post by your company Tarsus, you were affected by trademark problems. And secondly, you mentioned that now Ethermint changed its philosophy. Ethermint just serves as a library. So what does this mean?
Yeah, so the main problem here was the company that owned the trademark was requesting a large amount of tokens for the use of the name. because we didn't want to basically allow for this, and in the sense of, I guess, in a free rider work, is like we were the ones maintaining it. We were the ones like that basically reborn the entire project. And they took it from the library that it was right now, and we have now we're going to have 2 live chains using the Ethermint library on production. So because we wanted to leverage it as SDK modules and everything, we decided to rerun the project. And that was the main thing, like kind of like the large amount of tokens that they requested. And then the other part was for some people, and we did like some internal surveying here, as for some people, like Ethermint was considered like a failed project, in the sense that it took, like, it was 2021 and it still hadn't launched. So it took like more than 4 or 5 years to like take it to a production ready state. So for a lot of people, was like, oh, this was never seriously considered something. So because of those optics, we decided also to rebrand. And the final thing was we wanted to increase the scope of the original project. So initially, Ethermint, as I mentioned, was like Ethereum on Tendermint plus proof of stake. So we wanted to increase the scope, basically deploy an EVM or an IBC enabled EVM chain that, through the modularity of SDK modules, allowed you to create way greater functionality than just deploying a simple EVM. And that's why we wanted to increase the scope of the project. And thus the original idea or concept of Ethermint didn't make much sense, because we wanted to dream big with Evmos, and that's why we rebranded.
Yeah, it's super nice. Sometimes it makes just sense to rebrand and reflect and think about where the project is heading. And I think you did a very good job with that. And one other interesting aspect of Evmos is that projects can launch child chains and leverage the security of the Evmos hub, basically. Could you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so the main thing here is that once Evmos implements share security, a lot of applications would be able to deploy their own EVM and connect using the Evmos token as security. The main challenges, as I mentioned, in building its own EVM chain are basically that you have to build every new connection from scratch. So it's not just deploying an EVM, but it's also the partnership and all the suite of products and clients that you need to implement directly from scratch. So what we're thinking is, besides offering the security and offering like IBC interoperability, there needs to be a clear value proposition for a hub, in the sense of like, why would a new chain become your child chain instead of being like deploying a completely new sovereign chain that is not tied directly to the parent chain? So that's why we're also thinking about building like a suite of products, or a suite of connections as well, so that the users or the applications that directly deploy as a child chain can also benefit from having like a single block explorer, all the direct connection with all these applications, so that they don't have to do this from scratch and just build their, as we call them, like EVM application specific chains. So like DeFi applications that have an EVM for some specific functionality. And they will need also an explorer and everything. So we want to partner with them in the sense of like offering the same, like offering this suite as well. So if anyone out there is like building an application and is considering building on Evmos, we'll gladly talk with them and see how we can help them.
Yeah, guys, you heard it here first. And besides of that, I really want to highlight this because what you guys are doing, you create a lot of value and more opportunities for these projects. So far, there was only the opportunity to basically take advantage of the Cosmos SDK, launch your own chain. And now you are creating even multiple more opportunities. So this is pretty cool. And you also help these projects with an existing infrastructure that you guys had to build from scratch. And now I want to touch another interesting aspect of Evmos. It's that non-EVM chains can get exposure to actually native Ethereum projects. So for example, if Aave decides to launch an Evmos, other non-EVM chains, let's say region, can reach these smart contracts that are deployed on Evmos. And this could be like a gigantic value driver, in my opinion, for the whole Cosmos ecosystem, because all these non-EVM chains get more exposure. So could you tell us more about this and highlight the importance of this concept and how this thing developed?
Yeah, so the main goal here is to enable all these other chains to horizontal scale with the EVM. So, and enable interchain composability. What I mean by this is if you want to build on a specific functionality, you don't need to build it directly on top of your chain, and you can simply deploy a smart contract to test or build your application or DeFi application directly. So you deploy your smart contract and suite of products on Evmos, and then through IBC directly communicate with the smart contract, and so that your chain can execute application-specific functionality. What this will enable is not only like chains to scale, but also building completely new use cases. So for example, Sommelier is one project that interacts directly with Uniswap v3 on Ethereum to do liquidity management. So for example, if we had a DEX or an AMM directly deployed on Evmos, they could do that instead by sending an IVC transfer, an IVC transaction, and directly communicate with the smart contract that is deployed on Evmos and execute the liquidity managing and rebalancing the LPs as well directly on their chain. Why is this better than the existing approach of using a bridge like Gravity Bridge? Is that the latency is way lower. So an IVC transfer would take less seconds or like less time than executing a full transfer directly to Ethereum and back. And then the other thing is like saving on fees. So the users from these applications would save a lot of fees by sending IVC transactions directly to Evmos to communicate. So it's better for like these different application specific use cases, and it's better also for the end user that wants to leverage, for example, these positions. And this is a like really concrete use case because we have a fully equivalent EVM. Many use cases can be built on top. So for example, Regen is also considering deploying their eco credits directly or issuing or interacting with their eco credits directly with our EVM. There are multiple options here. So it's up to the developers themselves to build interesting use cases that will be enabled through this functionality.
Awesome. Now, at the end of this interview, I want to highlight probably the most interesting topic for our listeners, which is the Rektdrop. And I think this personally excites me very much because it basically rewards both Cosmos users and Ethereum users. And in my opinion, this could bring a lot of new Ethereum users to the Cosmos ecosystem. And could you talk a little bit more about that, like some of the airdrop eligibilities, and also highlight the philosophy behind the airdrop?
Yeah, so the Rektdrop itself, the core concept is on Ethereum. A lot of users are getting wrecked because of high fees. There's also like a series of hacks and smart contracts in different smart contracts through security vulnerabilities. And there are also a massive amount of MEV usage that is basically preventing users to use with ease the different AMMs and DeFi applications. And because of this, we wanted to implement the first gas drop. So the gas drop is tackling the first part, which is like all these high fees. So like we're basically querying the entire Ethereum blockchain for gas usage on a number of applications that are deployed there. So basically, you will be rewarded proportionally with the amount of gas that you spend on these different applications. And we'll be filtering, of course, like smart contract addresses and all that. But that's kind of like the core component of the gas drop, which is tackling like all of the gas used in Ethereum. And then that's kind of like the Ethereum component. Then we have the Cosmos users in general, like it's tackling mostly Osmosis LPs and Cosmos Hub stakers, and Osmosis and Ion holders as well. So for Osmosis LPs, we're tackling the eligibility is for Akash LPs, Osmo LPs, Atom LPs, and as I mentioned before, Osmo holders and Ion holders, and also Osmo stakers. And then on the Cosmos Hub, on the other side, we're rewarding like Cosmos Atom stakers as well. And yeah, those are like kind of like the two main components, like Cosmos and Ethereum. And because we also wanted to give back to the community of developers that basically make Cosmos possible, we also wanted to give back through early contributors, developers and members of the community that made the Cosmos Hub, the Cosmos SDK, Tendermint, even Go Ethereum, like an Ethermint possible. So we're also allocating a portion of the tokens directly to them. So yeah, that's kind of like the eligibility for the Rektdrop.
Yeah, I also really love how you also reward users of bridges like XDAI. It's like whenever you did something in Ethereum or in Cosmos and you were early, you get rewarded for it. And really, really excited about it. And I loved also the meme Rektdrop because we spent a lot of gas fees in the past couple of months. So it's kind of cool to get like kind of a compensation for it. But I mean, this is not, I guess that's not the only exciting thing that is going on your side. So could you give us some hints of your roadmap? So what can we look forward to?
Yeah, so in terms of the roadmap right now, we're tackling mostly IBC interoperability. For now, what we're doing right now prior to mainnet is like all the tokenomics work and like ERC20 functionality. So basically enabling like ERC20s to be transferred from different chains, and the tokenomics work that is currently in progress. Yeah, that's prior to mainnet. Post mainnet, we'll be announcing like a full roadmap, but most likely it's going to tackle like all the interoperability components like IVC directly connecting to smart contracts through DIVC, which is a functionality which you connect IVC from a specific smart contract to another specific smart contract in another chain. Also enabling, for example, IVC transfers to directly go to the EVM instead of like the user balance. So like if you have your ERC20 token, you can transfer like an OSMO to another, your OSMO directly to the EVM, NFT interoperability with the EVM as well. We're discussing like many different options.
Yeah, that sounds super exciting. And I mean, many people are very excited about Evmos in general. So many people ask themselves, what are good ways to get involved? What is a good way to engage with you on social media? And what is a good way to engage with the rest of your community? So could you name us some possibilities here, please?
Yeah, definitely get in touch with us on Twitter. The username is evmos.org. And it's the same one for Telegram and for Evmos, for the Evmos Discord, where we have all our community of validators and also developers and users that want to get early into Evmos. Feel free to also join our Discord. And yeah, we have all of those links are linked on the Evmos description on the bio on Twitter. So feel free to reach out to us and we'll get in touch with the members of the community so that you can get started.
Yeah, guys, you heard it here first. And as always, you can find all the links in the description below. So make sure to check them out. And with that being said, Federico, it was such a pleasure to have you on. We got many interesting insights from Evmos, and I think we all are looking forward to your Rektdrop and all of the cool things that are down the road.
Thank you, Yuri. Thank you, Fabian, for the interview, and looking forward to meet you again this year in person.
Hey, YouTube.